All right, guys, welcome back to Fantasy Gurus here. Want to say sorry for not posting any videos recently. I had a couple things going on, but mainly it was me searching for somebody who I can come in here, maybe do a little co-hosting, come on and do some guest appearances. I interviewed a couple of people and I found one, and it's this guy right here. So meet. He's going to be a co-host slash guest, but this is Leonardo. So him and I came up with some different running backs to talk about today. These are guys I'm going to be trading for before Week 9. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Please, again, if you guys like my content, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. But let's just get right into everything here. Going to go through 5 of them. Number 1 on my list today is going to be Khalil Herbert. I've talked about him multiple times. He was a waiver wire pickup. But at this point, it's just clear that he's the number 1 on this backfield. And coming off of the game at Dallas, he had 15.9 fantasy points. He was running back 14 on the week versus Montgomery, who he continues to outplay. Just had 3.5 yards per carry, 7 fantasy points, and he lost a fumble. So just analyzing this game, right? Like Montgomery outtouched Herbert. It was 18-16, and Montgomery outsnapped him too. He was on the field 70% of the snaps versus Herbert's just 28%, 55 versus the 22. But out of those 22 snaps, he still managed to touch the ball 16 times. So he is a focal point in that offense. But I've been saying this for weeks, right? Like Herbert is clearly looks like the more dominant back, the more explosive one. And on the season, he has 202 more yards than Montgomery with 1 less carry, averaging an absurd 6.2 yards per carry versus Montgomery's 3.9. On the season, Herbert's sitting at 95.5 fantasy points. He's running back 18. He's averaging, a little bit over 11 attempts a game, over 70 yards. It's that 6.2 yards per carry, and 11.9 fantasy points, which is good low-end RB2 numbers. Montgomery is more involved in the passing game. He isn't going to be completely eliminated in this backfield. But the good news is just overall, like for Bears fans, just people in general, they're starting to figure out how to get Herbert more involved. And this is a team that is growing with confidence every single week, and I expect that to continue going forward. Believe it or not, the number 1 team in rushing in the NFL right now is the Bears. They are number 1 in attempts with 285, and they have 1,500 yards rushing. So from there, I'm not concerned by Herbert's snap count or his usage because they're going to find the way to get him the ball. But from there, to top it off, the reason why I'm buying too is his schedule is a complete cakewalk for the remainder of the season. You can see it there. The Bears, as a whole, I said, are growing more confidence week in and week out. Herbert's a big part of that success, and someone I want to buy now while the value is low, and Montgomery is still the number 1 back, quote unquote. Before that, he start playing those soft run defenses and racking up some really, really big games, and then his value is going to skyrocket. So next on my list here is going to be Damien Pierce. Coming off of an all right week, 12.6 fantasy points against Tennessee. From an efficiency standpoint, it definitely wasn't his best performance, averaging just 2.3 yards per carry. He did manage to find the end zone in this one, and he's actually found the end zone in the last 4 out of 5 games. He has a 78% usage rating in Week 8, 4th most amongst running backs. So the reality is that he's on a very bad team, right? And that really limits his upside a lot of the time. And it's a red flag and something that I typically stay away from, especially with running backs. I don't like them on bad teams, but I'm going to make an exception on this one because he just happens to be one of the best running backs in the NFL. And if you disagree with me, listen to this, but he is one of the best. And that's why I'm buying. So he's really the only offensive threat that's on that team, and they are going to have to continue to feed him and use him to remain relevant. So they're going to continue to lean on him. But in college, he was the highest grade running back coming out of college by Pro Football Focus with a 92, and he had a 39% missed tackle rating, which is second best in his class. And we're seeing that actually transition into the NFL. And you can look at his stats there, but looking at the numbers, he was third worst actually in yards before contact. So he's averaging, I think it was 1.7 yards before contact, which just means his line is absolutely just not getting it done. But when you look at these numbers here, he's 5th in attempts, 11th in rushing yards, 5th in yards after contact, and 2nd in broken tackle. So he's just an absolute elite player, and he's making the most of what he has. He's just getting eaten in the backfield before, like literally as soon as he touches the ball. But, he's sitting at running back 16 on the season, averaging 13.96, just under 14 fantasy points, which is a high-end RB2 number. He also has the longest rush of the season of 75 yards. And his big play ability is elite, and that's one of the reasons why I want to go after him. Is that big play ability is one of the best in the game. He's posted double-digit fantasy points in 5 straight games. Was held under 14 points the last 2 games, so slightly discounted what you can get him at. But I just see huge potential, huge upside for him going forward, and that's why it's a good time to buy. I mean, look at his game log picture. So I'm buying. He's an elite talent, like I said. He has that big play ability to break that big run, and he's one of the few true workhorse backs that we have left here. So there's just no competition. Burkhead's not going to come in here and take his spot. But that being said, he has a high floor because of his usage, but he has a high upside because of that big play ability. It's a perfect combination. But if you do go out and trade for him and you watch the games, just be patient. It is frustrating. I agree, because at times you'll just watch him and he'll have nothing to work with there and just instantly get a lot. He has a lot of lost yardage when he runs the ball, a lot of negative yards, but he makes up for it, and he's truly an elite talent. All he needs is that one carry to hit his projection. He can take it 75 yards to the house, and I expect him to continue doing that. Next guy right here, more of a stash running back. You may be able to pick him up on free agency, but if not, he's not available, you can go out and trade him. He's not going to have that much value. You won't have to give up much of anything at all. It's more of a dart throw, but Rachaad White. And, he's carved out a consistent role, averaging, 7 to 8 touches and 4.3 fantasy points. Now, obviously, that's not fantasy relevant, and clearly he's far behind Fournette as of now. But the Bucs' run game is just absolutely atrocious. Fournette averages 3.4 yards per carry, actually better than White. White hasn't had better than 3. But White has shown flashes of his potential, and he definitely looks way more elusive of a back than Fournette is. And with that, like I said, he has carved out a consistent role, having 7 or more touches in 5 straight games, but it's not fantasy relevant. So from there, the reason why I'm buying or rostering if he's available in your league, if he is available, I suggest you just go pick him up right now, is because nothing is working for the Bucs. I expect them to switch things up, after their bye week and give their 3rd round draft pick, White, a couple more opportunities. What they need right now is a change, and they need explosiveness, something that White can provide that Fournette cannot. It's a very similar situation to like Pollard and Zeke. Zeke is more of the ground and pound, gets you 3-4 yards. Pollard's more of the elusive back, and that's the same situation here. I'm not saying White is a better running back by any means, but with little room to run, struggling offense, they're lacking big playability. Fournette's style of running is just not the best fit for them right now. If the Bucs continue this trend, they're going to look for White to see an additional 4 to 5 touches weekly. Most likely after the bye week, and that's going to make him fantasy relevant. Borderline flex option. If Fournette were to miss time, he'd be an instant starter on a weekly basis. But we'll see how that backfield plays out. But someone with upside, tremendous upside, second half of the season. And you don't have to go out and spend too much for him. And if you have a spot available, he is worthy of a stash. So let's just, go ahead and get him and see how things play out. Next one on my list here is going to be James Conner. James Conner, he's been completely forgotten about, and it's a little bit due to his performance when he does play, but it's just more so the injuries, the lingering injuries. He's missed the last 3 games because of the injury, and he hasn't played since week 5. And out of those 5 games that he has played, he's only finished 3 of those. So the one game that he was healthy, which was against Kansas City, the first game of the season, ended up scoring 14 fantasy points, had his only touchdown of the season. That was a James Conner-esque game. It was 10 for 26 and a touchdown. But, hey, that's what we draft him for, is that touchdown upside. But that was the only double-digit fantasy point performance of the season, and he's yet to beat his projection in any of the games. He's a great buy low because hopefully he's on track to play this week. He logged limited practices last week, but didn't suit up. He was like a late scratch. It appears they're just trying to wait to get him as healthy as possible, which is what I'd prefer. I don't want a 75% James Conner. I want more of like an 85%. So let's see what happens here because he could play, but definitely try and get him before he does because his value really couldn't be any lower. And to me, owners are frustrated and done with it. But this guy scored 18 touchdowns last season. The only difference is that Chase Edmonds is no longer there. So from there, the reason why, his involvement in the pass game has increased is because they don't have that pass catching back out of the field. So that is going to actually raise his floor, making him a little bit less touchdown dependent. But either way, that's just a bonus that he's going to be able to get a couple more catches. And then from there, the Cardinals, they were the hottest team in football last year. Starting off, they won their first 7 games. Then they came back to earth. I'm optimistic that this is going to be the exact opposite of this year. They're already looking a little bit better with Hopkins coming back. But the trade for Robbie Anderson just tells me that they really do believe in this team. They're going to do whatever they can. They have a very high-powered offense now. Once James Conner comes back, he's really the only missing piece. But if you look at he's got obviously Murray. You got Rondale Moore coming off of the best game of his season thus far. DeAndre Hopkins looks like his old self. Robbie Anderson is going to be thrown in there. You have Zach Ertz. This is one of the best offenses in the NFL once they put it all together. And once they do, expect them to score more touchdowns. Who's going to be the main beneficiary of those touchdowns? It's going to be James Conner. So definitely go out and get him before he's able to come back and play because right now he's completely forgotten about. And I can feel the momentum swinging really in their favor. And Connor's that missing piece. So he'll return sooner or later. Get him before it happens. He's heavily discounted. Owners are frustrated, and he's been forgotten too, so go out and get him. Last one up is going to be DeAndre Swift, one of the most talented running backs in the league, also one of the more efficient. He's coming off of 11.8 fantasy points, and he had 10 total touches, only 5 attempts. This performance couldn't be any more disappointing for Swift owners. After waiting 4 weeks to only get 5 carries, and then see Jamal Williams come in and put up 21 plus fantasy points, score 2 easy touchdowns. It's crazy too. I looked it up because I was like, man, Williams is doing really well. He's running back 12 on the season. I just never thought that was going to happen. But making matters worse on that scenario, Dan Campbell came out after and was like, the reason why that Swift only got those is because he's not fully healthy. So they are trying to limit him, which to me I think is a good thing. I want him to be completely healthy. It had nothing to do with Jamal Williams' success. It's just simply they want to preserve him, give him 10 touches. So he with those 5 rushes, which is probably never going to happen again unless he gets hurt, he still was able to put up a decent performance with 11.8 fantasy points, escape without hurting himself. And like Swift said, he continues to get better and better every single day. Expect him to be limited maybe the next couple of weeks. So damper down the expectations of him, but get him while his value is low and owners are getting frustrated. Even being limited, though, he was still on the field 55% of the time compared to Williams' 37. Outsnapped Williams 33 to 22. He just was more used as a decoy. But in terms of efficiency, Swift he's one of the best in the league. He's averaging absurd 7.4 yards per carry, which is number 1 in the league. He doesn't need 15 to 20 touches to be a running back 1. I would love for him to because he'd be one of the best in the league, top 3, be competing with we'd be in a McCaffrey conversation. But for what he's being used as, at least in the beginning of the season, he's still an RB1. Through 4 games, he's averaging 8 attempts, 3 receptions, a little over 3, 85 total yards. It was 100 yards before last week's performance, but 14.65 fantasy points, scored in 3 of the 4 games he's been in. The stats are slightly skewed because 2 of those 4 games he was healthy, 2 of them he weren't. But he was either injured or limited in some fashion. The Lions, though, the reality is they're struggling. And they need to find a way to get him more involved, or their season's going to be done. I do have concern about that. Maybe they're going to try and make him just kind of rest a little bit this season, knowing that it's going to be lost. But we're not at that point yet. And they do need to find a way to get them more involved. I believe that coaching staff believes in this team, and he's the most dynamic player on that offense. Once he is at or near full health, expect more touches and a true top 5 upside for the second half of the season, and a league-winning running back, potentially, if he can stay healthy. He's worth the risk at the discounted price for that upside, so I would definitely go out and get him before this week because he is going to have a little bit more touches. But other than that, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please go ahead and comment below. I'll help you out with your fantasy team. I apologize about not getting back to anybody I did. Been busy with this guy here. But with that being said, hit that like and subscribe button and stay tuned to my next video.